Hello and welcome. Welcome to INE Live, our special holiday edition, where we're going to be going over the top 2022 hacks. My name is Jack Reedy. I am INE's Director of Cybersecurity Content and your host for today, our holiday special. In just a minute, I'll be joined by the renowned Brooks Seahorn as we dive into the top hacks of 2022 and a quick game at the end of the show if we have time. We'll see if we get there. But before we do, be sure to like, follow, or subscribe on whatever social media platform you're using, just so you can stay in the loop whenever we do go live or reach out. Like I said, we are live across all the popular platforms like LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, plus our websites and a couple other places as well. If you want to get involved, talk to us, talk to others. We definitely love to see that. Our team is monitoring chat, and if you have a comment, feel free to drop it in. If you have a question, just put a Q at the front, and our team can find it and send it to me pretty easily. And we'll get to as many as we can today. Absolutely problem. I just see the poll that popped up while we fill in my jacket. With that, I will bring in today's guest. Brooks Seahorn is a cloud instructor at INE, specializing in AWS. Before coming to INE, he was an instructor and content creator at Amazon Web Services for 3 years. But even before Amazon, he wore many hats for almost 2 decades within Department of Defense, developer, engineer, and architect, just to name a couple. How are you doing today, Brooks?
And never in that time did I see a jacket that compare to that Long Island hot mess you've got on, man. That is great. By the way, everybody, I had no idea they wouldn't let me see Jack. They would not let me see Jack. They're like, no, you can't see until we go live. So, yeah. And the necklace. Oh, Jack, sir. Beautiful. Man,
I mean, I do what I can. At this point, it's a running theme for whenever I host the Christmas special, so might as well.
I was just trying to bring in the fireplace and the Snoopy and the sad Christmas tree, but I got nothing on that. That's fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh man, it's always good to kind of cut and let loose a little bit around the holidays and have a good time. So I think we're going to see how far we actually get through this list before we just crack up and start, making fun of each other.
That's where we're going. The train's at the station.
It's okay though. I mean, it's you and me. We are we're old buddies at this, right?
Exactly. Although I will say, some of this security stuff, it's got some humor in it too. I hate to say that because there's nothing funny about security, but some of it.
No,
especially when I get to do my little provider awards. Yes.
Yeah, there's funny parts of security. I mean, we've had plenty of stories on here where things just went completely awry, be it miscommunication or whatever else. It's all right. But let's go ahead and start. So we kind of blended this list together to let our audience know. We kind of blended this list together from the top attacks. We didn't really have too many qualifications as far as like the amount of money, like that's a quantifier and that raises the bar, or the amount of data that was stolen, or the amount of endpoints that were affected, right? More so just impactful as to, does this lead to a good point as far as what you should be looking out for? If it was boring, we kind of just kicked it out. But one of the ones that we wanted to talk about was back in March 2022, Lapsis compromised Cortana and Bing at Microsoft. Now, the attackers published a source code. No customer files were technically accessed or released according to Microsoft. Now, Lapsis, if you're unfamiliar with them, they focus on compromising user identities and accounts. They also tend to recruit employees at the targeted organizations and see if they can install backdoors, whatever. Frequently, they're known to deploy a redline stealer tool. And they're known for operating with and this is to quote Microsoft, pure extortion and destruction model. And unlike other hacking groups, doesn't seem to cover its tracks. Best description would be something akin to a smash and grab tactics. See what they can grab, ransom them off, and just basically destroy on the back end if necessary. Now, Brooks wanted to bring this up just simply to poke a little fun, I think.
I'm sorry. There's just something beautiful about this level of skill being used to compromise Cortana. It's like stealing a Yugo. I mean, it's just like, wow, you did that, didn't you? Like, you figured out how to get into the top security, get past everything. There were all these, you took the Yugo. And the best part was Microsoft's reaction was kind of like, yeah, they got the Yugo. Neat. I mean, they just washed their hands of it. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, so Microsoft did say, one, that they were already aware of the compromise and working to contain it whenever the data was released. So it wasn't a surprise to them per se. And two, they don't consider their open code to be a security risk because, they have so many individuals that access it regularly to update it and everything else like that. They don't consider the core fundamental part of that code to be something that basically they're saying they don't practice the security through obscurity model.
No, not at all.
I mean, yay, good.
But still, it's just amazing to see something like that happen where they just literally smash in there. We got Cortana, and everybody's like, and like, you got to do something else now. So that's just to see that Cortana level of skill.
I play Halo too. Yeah, we got Cortana too. It's
exactly. It's just it's art. If there was a security breach that was art, that was art. That was just nothing but art.
It was to show off. There you go. That's pretty good.
Hold my beer while I get on this dirt bike. Way to go, Lapsis.
There you go. Are you calling this the Florida man of attacks?
This could be the Florida man of attacks. Exactly. Okay. But there's an art to it that you cannot deny. You can't do it.
All right. There we go.
Well, tell them about the crypto.com because this one's pretty good.
Yeah. So January 17th of this year, crypto.com was attacked for actual crypto theft and targeted nearly 500 people's cryptocurrency wallet. Now, that might not sound like a lot. However, in total, the attackers, I should say, stole approximately $18 million worth of Bitcoin at the point of writing that article, which, I mean, it's crypto. It goes up and down every day. So, and $15 million worth of Ethereum, plus a couple other cryptocurrencies. Basically, the attackers bypassed two-factor authentication and accessed the user's wallets directly. Now, initially, Crypto.com had dismissed the attack as simply an incident, but they later retracted that statement and then confirmed that money had indeed been stolen and that the affected users had been reimbursed as well. So that would be the company itself had an error or vulnerability that was attacked, and it was not at the fault of the users. Trust me, they would not be reimbursing people if they could prove it any way, shape, or form it was their fault.
Exactly. I think Tracy just put it up there nicely. It was about 37 cents worth of Bitcoin today. So
37 cents worth of Bitcoin today.
Somewhere in that range.
Ethereum has plummeted.
Good gravy.
But yeah, it was, it was, it's one of those things where when you talk about risk matrices, or you talk about wallets, or you talk about like your personal care, like the users took personal care and they had multi-factor authentication turn on, two-factor authentication. Still though, they still were compromised, right? So when you do everything right and you still lose money, at which point, like, just wash your hands of it and go off the grid, right?
Exactly. Because what else have you got left? You're going to come to the party, but expect there to be problems. It's going to happen. It's kind of like tantamount to our next story about Paige Thompson, where for those of you who don't know about Paige, what basically happened was she was an AWS employee back in 2019 who did some hacking, sort of an internal job, inside job. And I think the thing that I like most about it is the fact that she downloaded like 100 million customer records. She got into all sorts of stuff. Her defense was she was trying to let customers know there was a problem. But here's the thing, okay, Jack? When you do something like that, don't then turn around and start installing crypto miners in your customer accounts. They're going to figure you're not being a good person at this point, okay? Not to mention, there's systems in AWS that can detect crypto mining operations and report on them. She should have known this. I was there at that time. I knew that. You don't do this. So anyway, finally, everything's been done. She was finally convicted in June of this year for her part in that. And it just goes to show you with these sorts of things, these are long stories, Jack. Like these things happen in the past. They finally get done. And in this case, Capital One and 30 other companies really got hit. Again, talking about the last one, they didn't really do anything wrong. It's just all of a sudden they found out things were going sideways on them, and then you're just left trying to figure out what to do. So with that one, that's truly one of those ones where, that one's on the cloud provider's shoulders. They shouldn't have, something should have been done there.
Well, sort of. It also, so in the case of Paige Thompson, being that she was part of AWS employee and everything else like this, she identified the vulnerabilities, but she never actually disclosed it to the customer base. She never actually disclosed it to Capital One and in a professionally appropriate way. On top of that, just because you have access doesn't mean you get to download the data. And the last thing, the most important thing, what we do reiterate here, is you have to have authorization in order to conduct white hat attacks.
That's right.
Now, if you find something, which I personally, I have found stuff just browsing the internet, like looking up, I've done research for like college papers and whatever else, and I found data lakes that were just accessible. And so then I, linked in the CISO and whoever else has security in their title at that company. And like, hey, do you know that this is unlocked? No, I didn't. Thank you. But I didn't download their stuff. I found it and I went, oh, hey, by the way, this is open. Might want to lock that door.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest part about it. That's when you can truly tell the white hat, because the white hat will go, oops, and then turn and do something about it. There was actually one way back. This is probably been well over a decade ago, where I saw a vulnerability in a bookseller's website. And there was a way to get a fairly expensive book for like next to nothing, just by sort of crafting the little bit of the URL. And the funny thing about that one, and this is where things get strange, where you reach out to the security people and you say, hey, you're broken. And they go, hey, thanks, buddy. And then like a week later, you test it and it's still there. And you're like, okay, now you're just asking for it. Now you're just asking for it.
Yeah, there's actually, I don't know if you're probably aware of this, but there is open sorts of data that are requirements for the government, federal government, and U.S. federal government, that they must disclose to the public. So data.gov just keeps a repository of all this data. And most of it, I'd say something in the area of 80 to 90% of it is either weather or terrain related data, like geological surveys, stuff like that, right? However, a couple of years ago, I found definitive access to employee records from one of the states, I won't say which one, that specifically listed everybody's work information for the power company.
The
electrical grid. And I was just like, this, like I contacted their government. I was like, this is not good. They're like, it's in a state law. We actually have to publish this. I was like, that's a dumb state law.
Wow. Well, can we have an episode of tips for terrorists? I mean, good gravy.
Yeah, we're not going to do that one again.
No.
Yeah, no, it wasn't great. I was like, you guys might want to be a little harder of a target, please.
Yeah. We're here to change subjects. DDoS, one of my favorite subjects, being a cloud person, the one against North Korea. Please tell that tale.
Okay, so this one is kind of a little bit of a incident. So obviously, a lot of my background is an incident response analyst, which means I analyze attacks and everything else like that. A lot of times, people would call us in the news security researchers, which is another form. Generally, you sit a little bit more at the cutting edge of stuff. A security researcher hacked North Korean servers in February of this year. So pseudonym is P4X, which I'm sure there's some fancy way of saying that, but launched DDoS attacks and crippled North Korea's internet in February 2022. The attacker claims that he was originally attacked by North Korea, by North Korean spies, for approximately a year. And then he, in turn, took things into his own hands after a year and disrupted their servers that were all hosted in DPRK. Said he used unpatched vulnerabilities in the North Korean systems to launch the DDoS attacks. Now, 2 waves of total outages struck the isolated country's internet over a period of roughly 2.5 hours. Now, while it is very common knowledge in security that this particular country only has less than 1% of people that are actually able to access the open internet. There
Mm-hmm.
are there are a lot of internal network devices where that and a lot more people are able to access them. Apparently, this attack knocked off their DNS server capability, or DHCP, sorry, DHCP and their DNS server capabilities within the country, the entire country. So these outages also took offline North Korea's Ministry of Foreign Affairs website. They also hit Air Koryo National Airline and a bunch of major internal servers, which are MX servers as well. So it knocked over basically all of their communications for internal logistics, things like that, in and out of the country. It was insane. It lasted approximately, I think in total, it lasted about a day. I know it's 2.5 hours of downtime. I
Yeah.
think I remember reading this report, and it lasted, I think the attack lasted in total 14 something hours, where the actual before he turned everything off and was like, okay, you get the point, stop attacking me.
Once again, something beautiful about cyber and the internet. One person attacked by a country and they go, you know what? That's enough. That's enough. Watch this. That's enough.
Yep.
That is just that is the Florida man. Hold my beer, get that screaming crotch rocket up and running and head for the ramp. Let's see what you can do.
Yeah,
Let's see
I
what
wouldn't.
you
I
can
wouldn't even
do.
say Florida man for that one. That was Evil Knievel.
Oh yeah,
That
that
was
was. That
that
was
was
definitely Evil Knievel.
that
Look
took
that up,
that
kids.
that took some a little bit of planning, a little bit of dedication. Like you want to try? Okay, cool. Let's try this. That was
That's
pretty good.
amazing.
You want to introduce? We also the Hell's Keychain from IBM. What's going on with that one? You mentioned it to me earlier.
Ooh, yeah. Let me set this one up. Okay, so here's what we do. We do track a lot of the cloud related security stuff here. And basically, I kind of break it up into four categories or four levels, it being low, medium, high, and critical. And if you look across the entire year, there's been like 41 incidences across all four of those different levels for most of the major cloud providers. So AWS, Azure, Google, Oracle, and then this one that we're going to talk about now that Jack just brought up. But basically, this is what's happened. If you look at the critical stuff, AWS and Azure, they've had about three each. They are really the only ones that have had a critical so far this year. I'm just looking at my notes, everybody. Everything breaks out. Google had like 4 total, whereas AWS and Azure had 16 and 18 for all 4 categories. Google had 4. Oracle had just 2. They did really good this year. But IBM literally here snatched failure from the jaws of victory. And the attack that was done on them was so unique, or what happened, the vulnerability they found was so unique, it now has a name called Hell's Keychain. And literally, this is how it played out. Someone out there, Wiz Research, figured out that you could do a PostgreSQL escalation via an injection attack, which led to being able to get basically the credentials for the Kubernetes. I see what else they got: the Kubernetes, they got the private container registry, the image registry, and the CI/CD server credentials all packed together. Then once they had that, they basically could escape out, get into other people's virtual environments, and start doing reads and deletes on their PostgreSQL system. So this thing was amazingly complicated, what they were able to do, and the compromise was just unbelievable. Now, and this is one of the cool things about cloud, though, and Jack, you could probably speak more about this than I can. When things go bad on-prem, it's always on us. We've got to figure out what to do. But with this, that's on them. And IBM basically wrapped it up like in a day. Like in one day, they had this thing figured out. Customers didn't have to lift a finger. But it's just one of those things. It's like getting that letter of, like I got yesterday, oh, we lost some data. We're real sorry about this. You may want to check yourself. And it's like, okay, thanks a lot. So it was that same sort of thing. But what I love is the fact that IBM did not have one incident the entire year. And here, December 1st, bam, they got one in at the last second, and it was critical. Way to go, IBM.
Yeah,
Way to go.
I mean, well, it's it's kind of like my uncle always told me, if you're gonna go to jail, make sure it's worth it.
Oh yeah.
Like, if you're gonna fail,
Yeah.
if you're gonna fail, make sure you fail like broadly, spectacularly, something that is unforgettable.
Get some
Joking, of
street
course.
cred.
Don't intentionally go to jail.
It's like that suit of yours you got on, man. Get some street cred. That's all you need. That suit that'll get you street
Yeah,
cred.
I mean, you would like IBM is really. It's great to know that they are so succinct in everything that they're doing that the only vulnerability that comes out or the only critical incident that comes out is a critical level vulnerability. Yeah, it breaks everything, but they were able to, like you said,
Yep.
remediate within 24 hours. A lot of times, companies don't even know that they have a critical issue for months,
Exactly.
30 days.
It was like the whole Log4j thing last year where everybody was losing it. The truth of the matter is on the inside of like AWS, they had it resolved because it was this time of year. Everybody was getting ready to go on Christmas vacation. All the engineers were like, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. And they got it straightened away like really fast for them anyway. But now it's on the customers to make sure everything's right. Now, also in the defense of AWS, Azure, and all them, attack surface size. AWS is gigantic. They're constantly getting just beat up and knocked down. So you got to figure between them and Azure, which is why you see this play out of like 16, 18, then it drops all the way down to 4 for Google, and then 2 for Oracle, and just that 1 for IBM this year. So, kind of looking at it fair. If they were started getting bigger, I expect to see a lot more vulnerabilities start popping up.
That's very fair. And I mean, you have to take a look at what is it? It's the king of the mountain scenario. You know what I mean? Like the higher you are in the mountain, the bigger, the more you're going to get attacked, right? So.
Oh yeah, I remember probably just a little over a decade ago talking to the guy that's now like head of security for Apple, and we were having a conversation about security vulnerabilities on Macs, and his thing was like, yeah, they're not vulnerable right now because nobody's using them. Just wait. And he always said if they ever get to be a bigger and bigger player, watch what happens. And it's happening because like every one of us sorry little developers, we're sitting on Mac machines right now, stuff like that. So just wait for it.
Yeah, no, I everybody that I've ever heard that it says, well, they're unhackable. I'm just like, that's because they don't have market share yet. That's all it is,
Yeah.
At least not a significant one.
Yeah, and Tracy just popped in there. It's good. How much of those numbers reflect market share rather than actual vulnerability? That's exactly it right there, Tracy. The bigger these footprints get out there, the bigger the surface area, the more bullets you're going to catch. It's going to happen.
Yeah. I want to point out Yuri B's comment, previously we were talking about the North Korean attacks and the DDoS. Attribution is hard to do, though, when you want to retaliate. What if attackers were using North Korean networks as a last leg of their attacks? Or you attack someone who attacked you and turns out it's compromised cancer center. Absolutely. I want to be really clear for a second. I probably should have said this disclaimer ahead of time. I do not condone retaliation attacks. Okay. I really don't. I don't condone those whatsoever. It's just one of those things that it was kind of funny to see that they got attacked and then they attacked back. And yeah, it was more of a commentary. That's all.
Oh, don't try this at home, kids. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. And here's the thing. You don't know who that may be. You really don't. Trust me. And Jack and I will both look you in the eye. You don't know. Okay? So don't. Just don't. Just let it play out. I mean, like, great example of mine. Back when I first discovered Linux, and this is 20 years ago, didn't know what I was doing. I got hacked by some kids over in Europe. It was fantastic. I just let the box sit just so I could watch them and see what they did. I ended up with one of the biggest MP3 libraries you have ever seen, Jack. Like they were uploading every artist you could think of, and I just let it grow. Just let it grow. I was like, yes. And then finally, click, and just turned it off. And I was like, thank you for the music, kids. Thank you for the music. So I was like this World Wide Web MP3 source point for people everywhere. It was great.
Able to hear me, Brooks?
I can hear you, but you're frozen completely still.
I believe I have no idea where that's coming from, where I'm frozen. It's also black on my side, but it's okay. We'll keep, as long as you can hear me.
We'll keep going.
Yeah.
Look, we've got some honorable mentions, and I love this first honorable mention because This is such a sad story. It just keeps going, Jack, and I don't know why we keep doing it. In fact, I was working with Dr. Harris the other day looking at some AWS stuff, and there was something we noticed was that, or she reported on to me, was that in April they're going to change up the way S3 is working because once again, somebody set an S3 bucket out there. It was publicly accessible. It was a place called Pegasus Airline. This happened in May, and they had 6.4 terabytes of data. Okay, if you have that much data in a bucket, somebody needs to be paying attention to it. But they had this data out there. It had navigation information. It had software. It had all this stuff in it, and it got compromised. And here's the thing on those, Jack. I mean, literally, to fix that problem, start a stopwatch. Like, start a stopwatch. You can fix it so fast. So the fact that these things exist out there still today is just, it's amazing. It's just amazing.
What do you mean start a stopwatch?
Like, if you just gave me a bucket and I had an access to it, right? You said, oh no, it's open to the public. Literally, start your stopwatch. I can fix that within 10 seconds.
Oh,
probably with a login. Like, log in, get to the bucket, click one checkbox, tell it, yeah, I meant to do that, and then you're done. That's it.
I mean, so when you said start a stopwatch, I had to be clear that wasn't a new Amazon service because they have 2,000 of them. So
we used to, okay, everybody, when we would go out to customers, because we were just such knee-jerk goofballs, we all had our laptop lids covered with stickers because that's what you did. And we had a Marine create this one. So right here, there would be a Sasquatch. And everybody look and goes, what's that? We say, that's the new service, AWS Sasquatch. It's been deployed up into the Oregon region. Few people have seen it. We're not quite sure what it is, but we think it's up there.
That's Sasquatch. Good. That one, that's that's funny. That's good.
Marine like humor right there. It was fantastic.
Well, I mean, for example, like I used to work with Intel a lot for the computer stuff and threat intelligence stuff like that.
Yeah.
But whenever I got my TS and we're walking into the secure area to go and get the Intel up briefs and whatever classification for indicators of compromise, it's like, okay, secret squirrel stuff, blah blah blah, blah. And there's just this running joke of having the secret squirrel mentality for the Intel community, and that's just the mascot. That just the little squirrel. Yep, the secret squirrels. Yep.
Except now, here's the dark reality of those skiffs. We had one person who said they would go in there. They will watch the room for that. You've got to unlock the room. There's all sorts of opening procedures. You've got to sign in, and nobody wants to be stuck in there because if you leave, you've got to go through the locking procedure. So we had this one sweet soul. She stayed in there the whole time, but she ate in there. She drank stuff in there. And then and Jack will tell you this, you typically don't have a lot of maintenance staff going in there. They typically don't go in there. And Jack, the room got so just, well, you can imagine it. We had secret mouse. It was an actual mouse in the room. And because we had the fabric walls, what it could do is it could run up the corner and it had like a hole up in the tiling that it would run up into. So we didn't have secret squirrel. We had secret mouse, and he was real, man. He was classified. We tried to put the sticker on him. He wouldn't have it. He would not have it.
That sounds like a really secure area to have a mouse that's running in and out.
Yeah, we got a mouse, a little white mouse. He'd run right. You just be sitting there. All of a sudden, you see like you're like, man, it's the mouse. Yeah.
Not the computer mouse we want. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's the one you got. That's the mouse you got because we couldn't keep the room clean. Could not do.
Moving on. Back in June, just blowing past that one. Back in June, Google actually had the biggest DDoS on record.
Oh
that we know of. So within 1 hour, over 5,000 different IP addresses from 130 different countries peaked at 46 million requests per second. and it was able
Wow.
to mitigate all of it, apparently. So
Wow.
an
40.
attack was attempted.
Yep. Hey, the try was made. The try was made. And to be honest with you, Jack, that to me is one of the biggest selling points of the cloud because there's stuff out there they've deployed to the edge because AWS, Azure, Google, they know they are giant sitting targets out there. And
Mhm.
so they have these network adapters like you wouldn't believe. Like AWS, like with their Shield and Shield Advanced, like you get a lot of security. As a matter of fact, a lot of people don't know this about Shield Advanced. I've heard a lot of customers when I was at AWS say, no, that's an insurance policy. I was like, what do you mean it's an insurance policy? Because the idea with Shield is if you get a massive DDoS attack, they're going to absorb most of it. But here's the thing. If you've got scaling sitting there, Jack, and you've got like a really, really, really high limit on like how many EC2s you're going to spin up, you can spin all them suckers up because of a DDoS attack. However, if you can show AWS, look, I spun up 120 virtual machines because of the DDoS attack, you don't get charged for it. So literally, I think that last time I heard it was like $3,000 a month for Shield Advanced. It is an insurance policy just for this kind of stuff. Because if you can spin up that many machines, man, yeah, I've got to have some insurance. I got to
Yeah,
have it.
no, the flexibility and capability. I mean, the biggest issue that I constantly have in security when it comes to cloud is just from developers. Usually, it's unsecured APIs. It's people posting up their keys up into GitHub. Like,
Wait. Look, Jack, I got that library off of hackers.net. I'm sure that library is just fine. Okay?
it's not even that. It's legitimately writing legitimate code and then hard coding the API keys right into the code in a public repository. That's the problem.
True story, Jack. True story. Literally, as I'm sitting here like this, okay? Sitting right over here was my junior developer. His name was Matt. Hey, Matt, if you're out there in the world, he would do stuff like that from time to time. And this is what he would do. He would do it and he would lock his machine, grab his cat card stamp, and yell, "Great justice," and just walk away. And I was like, oh, what has he done? What has this kid done? And he would do that all the time because, in so many of these environments, we don't have the tooling we need. Like in AWS, you have secrets manager where you can put
Mhm.
stuff and things like that. But so many times, and I hate to say it, it's just laziness. It's like, I just got to get this done. So I'm just going to throw the keys right in there. Forget it.
Yeah, I don't know about one time. Sometimes it's laziness. Sometimes it's bad practice because they don't realize that they're on a public repository. They, you
Yeah,
know, they think it's, oh, this is security through obscurity. Nobody can see this code, so I'm just gonna, you know, do this, right?
exactly. Nobody's going to see it. This is going to be just on this network over here. Don't
Hmm.
worry about it. I mean, it's the same token going out there and grabbing some tool. Like we had a kernel at one time. He put this file, I think it was an Excel spreadsheet, over on Zipper, put a password thing on it, forgot his password, then found this thing over on the internet that could unlock it, took it to the SIPRnet on a thumb drive. So he's, goes over there, plugs this thing in, and the next thing you know, the network shop's calling saying, "Hey, who's trying to hit servers in China? Could you tell us that real quick? We're seeing some odd eyes." It's like, oh no, laziness, just flat laziness.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, one of the biggest issues I had when I first showed up to Afghanistan was the amount of flash games that were on Sipper. They legitimately, so some of you guys might be a little too young for this, but Excel used to be even more insecure than it is,
Yep.
and
Yep.
and you could run macros on it, which is, you know, that's cool and all. But if you ran macros, you could do VBS scripting with VBS and a couple other languages actually.
Yep.
With that, you could actually create games, and you would just open up an Excel spreadsheet, and there would be a full-on game that you could play in there. Some of them even like would save the high scores. Uh,
Absolutely, they would because we had well, Fred. That was his special. We all had names. We all had little code names. So this guy was Fred, And Fred was from another planet when it came to scale. He embedded Elf Bowling into Excel, and we took it over on the high side, and it worked. We were just like, Fred, beautiful, man, beautiful.
So it was you. So when next time I see you, we're gonna have a talk because of all the hours I had to go and clean up. I know the exact game you're talking about.
And the thing was, there were no speakers, which was like, oh. So like somebody said, well, you can take speakers in there, but then you got to put the sticker on. It's like, we're really going to create high side speakers. We're going to do this. It's like, yep, we're going to do it. High side speakers. Hey, Yuri asked a question just a moment ago that I wanted to come back to, and then Tracy made a great point. But Yuri B asked this: DDoS refund for overage resources. That's exactly right. That is exactly what that is. I mean, you've got to think about it. There's organizations out there, and I've been at some of them that can, basically what it comes down to this. There are scaling events you can't plan for. And I'm not going to tell the story, Jack. I promised myself there is a horrible story. It will ruin Christmas for everyone, so I'm not telling the story. But this company had a scaling event they could not have anticipated. It was impossible to anticipate. And in those cases, when things suddenly scale, I mean, I think they said when everything was done with the scaling event, they had spun up like 250 Apache servers in their environment to handle the load that occurred. So in that case, when stuff like that happens because of your customers, hey, that's on you. But when you're getting DDoSed, I mean, that's not, and so companies like AWS will offer via these special services like Shield Advanced, literally, you get hit, you let us know, you can prove it, and then I don't know if they give you credit or if they refund it back on your bill. But, that's neither here nor there. You're going to end up spending the money anyway. So, yeah, that's the kind of thing.
Yeah, to RX100's point, I asked for a refund for a legit issue I faced with all proof. How is that refund process will happen? So correct me if I'm wrong, Brooks, but it sounds like it's a preemptive service for DDoS, right? You have to buy into the service ahead of time, and if the DDoS happens, then you get the refund.
Yeah, right? Then you got to do it, and I would not recommend anybody get it unless you're a big company, because it is $3,000. I think the last time I checked, $3,000 a month. Which
and that wouldn't surprise me if it went up.
Yeah, hey, if you get beat up enough, a lot of these big companies, sure, I'll be happy to pay that.
Well, I mean, look at the full. So we'll talk a little. We'll bring this up a little high level, guys, so that way you understand not just from a tactician's standpoint, but from a business standpoint. Think of this from a business standpoint. How many full-time employee hours you have to then put in to whenever you do get DDoSed to remediate the situation, reconfigure things, find the vulnerability, clean things up, and also the loss in reputation and opportunity that you have with your customer base, right? Mm-hmm. So from a business perspective, $3,000 a month to make sure that you don't lose customer face and your employees don't get called away from Christmas to come and take care of this. It's a sound peace of mind, and it's an easy bit of business investment.
Yeah. Tracy made the point that a relative works at a company with a large presence in AWS. They regularly get DDoS attacks and just sit back and watch. I will say this. There is some, just absolutely arcane magic happening on their networks. It's incredible what happens on an AWS network. It's just amazing what they managed. In fact, I would highly recommend for any of you that are into networking, go back and look at reInvent. Look at some of the videos about networking. It will blow your mind. Like their routers and stuff, they're not Cisco. It's their routers. They created them. They have their own software on it and everything. These are all custom something or others that are actually making the magic happen. It's really incredible.
That's Amazon at this point has proven time and time again they are large enough to be their own manufacturers for their own devices rather than third party. So
hey, they've got their own silicon. They've got these Graviton processors out there. And by the way, on the Gravitons, one thing that's cool about them is that I really think they're worried about how much heat they're producing. Like they're no, 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 no. We're not producing a lot of heat. Everything's cool. Meanwhile, there's just like steam coming off the data centers.
Yeah, I mean, man, I wish I could explain the experience to our audience about walking through a data center with hot and cold aisles, and that feeling you get of like hot flashes every time you walk past a certain area.
Yes, yes. We had an incident, gosh, Jack, 20 years ago. Now, back me up on this, Jack. When you're leaving a
Mhm.
secure room, okay, you're at the door. Okay, here's the door. There's a
Mhm.
button right there, isn't it? Let me back this up. There's a button right there. You push the button, the magnetic lets go. You can open the door and leave the room, right?
Depending on the door, yes.
Okay.
I remember I came from a really poor part of the military, so our doors were not that fancy until I got to DC, and then yes, I know the doors you're talking about.
Hey, look, I love the core, but yeah, y'all, yeah, take the chair and shove it under the door handle, and now this room is secure. Now, let's move on. We had a setup. I'm not making this up. This is absolutely incredible thinking back about it. But here was the setup. The door had a motion sensor. So as you got to it, the mag let loose. Just to the right of it was a button, a big red button. And it was to turn off power to the lab environment. And we had a young lady from DISA walk up, think, okay, that's the button you push, hit the button, the lab shuts down. No plastic cover, y'all. I'm not making this up. No plastic cover, no warning, no nothing. And what Jack just talked about happened. I think, Jack, when we finally got the HVAC systems back online, the room had gotten to like 120 degrees or 130.
Oh,
Oh, the
you
servers
want to
kept
talk
going.
about that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could not
So
shut that thing down. So, Merry Christmas.
I was I was in so part of our complex was not quite like it was buried into a hill, so it had egress out at some areas, but it was designed to be buried like into a hill.
Yeah.
Of our two AC units, one died. Like there was we don't know how, but one of the coolant hoses burst a leak. Water and whatever mixture, antifreeze, whatever, was just gushing, literally gushing out the thing. And I still had to work. I was on the instant response team. So we
Yeah.
had a 24-hour shift, and I was on the overnight shift. On the overnight shift, just the amount of idle power in this computer center with the server, like of course we had multiple server rooms for on-prem stuff. I think it got up to about 95 in the building because there's no AC and nowhere for that heat to go or get cooled down or pushed out or anything like that. It was a thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Incredible. That's the thing about cloud. No data centers.
Yeah.
None. None.
Well, it was funny because the overnight crew had to deal with it. We talked to the
Yeah.
watch officer, we talked to everybody else, and they were like, we'll get more clearance on this in the morning. We're like, we're off shift in the morning. Well, no, you got to deal with it. So we're working in a classified area. Not, the heat's just building in there. It's getting intolerable. We keep taking, cigarette breaks every 20 minutes or so. Like we're basically going into a sauna, sitting there for 20 minutes. No work's getting done.
Right.
And walking
Right.
back out for 10, 15
Right.
minutes. And then like we're revolving door going in and out and just making sure we have bare minimum coverage on the floor because it's ridiculous. The next shift comes in, day shift. The new day, the watch officer, the top, everybody gets there.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, they shut that part down and they roll over to our warm site and they take over the instant response duties. And it's like, that was an option the entire time. Why did we just spend the last 5 hours roasting our tails off in this facility?
Wow. In full uniform. Full uniform.
Well, no, we definitely dropped the top. So we dropped our blouses and we were just in boots and utes like we were working out, sweating with sweat patches. Like it was great.
Because you absolutely were. Whew.
A couple of the contractors refused to go in at all. They're like, I can't, medical issues. And they just sat outside the entire time. It was great.
Contractors are the best.
Oh, yeah. Contractors are.
I'm not out there eating a sandwich looking you dead in the face. I ain't going in. Do you know another? Another
Go
thing
ahead.
I
Go
wanted
ahead.
to talk about. This is one of my new favorites. I didn't even know this was happening until this year, but apparently, um, and maybe you can talk on this a little bit, Jack, because this one still has me scratching my head a little bit. There is a SQL injection attack that you can bury inside JSON that'll cause a web application firewall to like kind of go, I don't know what that is, and allow it through and allow the SQL injection to actually reach the flippin' systems and actually work. So it sounds like with some of these WAF rules, we're dealing with situations now, and this has been going on through the year. Hopefully, here in 2023, we'll get it resolved. Where they're basically embedding JSON. These WAF rules don't know how to read it, so they just let it on through.
I mean that it sounds an older attack would be, I believe it's the teardrop attack, where you malform packets intentionally so that way as they're scanned at the firewall level, then they're passed on, passed on, passed on. Now, of course, we have stateful inspection. We combine everything
Mm-hmm.
together, then we inspect it, and then send
Mm-hmm.
everything like. But it sounds like that. It sounds like that older attack. It's just within the JSON areas, and I mean, you can do that with that obfuscation. There's no matter what you do, there's still ways that malware ends up on your desktop. It ends up in your server. It ends up wherever, right? There's so
Mm-hmm.
many different ways to obfuscate the code, even if it's being inspected. Um,
Right.
a, to the point now where a lot of firewall providers, now I don't think they'll do this on WAFs though, which is a good point because it is cloud and it deals with a lot higher input. But a lot of the on-prem firewalls will do what's called sandbox detonation. So they'll take the files that are being sent, if they are a file, and they can identify, a file tag in there, and they will take a very small sandbox environment, detonate
Mm-hmm.
it, determine its behaviors, and then based on that, it will recommend whether or not it's malicious or not.
Wow. Now,
Yeah.
what kind of, like, when something like that happens, what's the delay we typically see for something like that? Because that sounds like that takes a second.
So it depends on the size of the file. And there
Mm-hmm.
are file limitations, like 2 gigs generally is a pretty standard industry file limitation size. And what you can get instead is if they download it and they execute it, all of this will run in the background. So they've already downloaded the file, they've executed the file, and then you'll get a report after the fact. So
Okay.
it's still an early alert though. You'll get it like the user will download and execute that file, and then 5 minutes later, before the EDR sends you an alert, you'll get an alert like, "Hey, we think that file was malicious," so you can already contain the system like that. Like it's very
Oh,
quick.
okay. I got you. I got you. Okay. I
Yeah,
kind of like
it's
that
still an
idea. Like,
early warning system.
yeah, somebody's just been a knucklehead. Pretty much guarantee it. Now go get them.
Yeah. Well,
Now
and then I
go get
have
them.
seen some that will do it real time as well, depending on the file size.
Yeah.
Uh, they'll even send you an email. You can configure it to send you an email if you download like a 2 gig file, and it's like, this is being investigated by security. We'll send you a download link in a second.
Right. Right. Gotcha. Okay.
But it's all about tweaking your security to your footprint, what you need, because if you're a law firm, that makes sense. That level of security makes sense. Financial firm, something like that. If you are dealing with patient data, you can't really wait for this stuff to roll over if you need stuff right then,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So it just depends on the speed and the efficiency and the security that's necessary. And you just kind of got to tweak it to what makes sense for you and your business.
Jack, that brings up a question. I've always wanted to ask you this question, okay? Because
Sure.
you know about this stuff. We both have got the experience with it. And this I don't get, I don't understand. And I'm hoping in 2023 some magic happens. And that is this: when are people going to start treating networks that carry this type of data like a zipper net? It's like, that's another network, friend. Like, you better not be taking no thumb drive. You better not be doing this. You
Mhm.
better not be coding over there. Like, your code needs to be scanned, checked, verified before you even think about taking it. And then Jack takes it over there. I don't take it.
So that's two concepts, fundamental concepts, which is separation of duties combined with network segmentation, both of which are fundamentally important. And here's the thing, not to get into a touchy subject, but a lot of people, Bill Gates donates a lot of money, but he donates to stuff that's considered boring, which is water and land
Mhm.
usage and stuff like that. So, it's with that, the fundamentals of network segmentation and job roles is a boring type of security that a lot of people don't like to do because it is complex, it is difficult, it is expensive for
Mm-hmm.
the really in-depth complex stuff, but it is the best way to actually secure your network. And I'll tell you, we just talked about Microsoft and how Cortana and Bing got compromised, but because of their network segmentation, no user data was. I know it's network segmentation or job role accessibility or something in there where that individual wasn't able to jump from that project to anything else.
That's right. That's right. And I'm just so surprised by this, Jack. Even here, we're 2022. These concepts have been around forever. I don't get why more people don't do these things. This is simple. This is 101. If again, going back to coding, if I write a piece of code, I take it to the parrot box back here. That's where it gets compiled. Somebody like Jack checks it to make sure it's actually not going to blow anything up. And then Jack takes it over to the high side network. I don't do that. So much of what we're seeing, we continue to see, and a lot of the stuff that just has popped up over this year has just simply been because of lack of training, lack of caring. Laziness is why. Thank you, bearded IT. You're exact. Just laziness. I mean, come
Well,
on. And here's what's worse about it to me, Jack. This is the worst part. People will be lazy, and then after it's all over, say, why did I do that? Like they're just, like they know it's coming. They know it, like somebody's going to get them for being stupid. It's like, why didn't you just buckle up, do the hard job, and then that way you wouldn't be under the stress of I just screwed up.
yeah, and I mean, I would say that part of it is laziness. Part of it can also be an understanding because some of these systems that are built in the way that they operate on a day-to-day basis, you have
Mm-hmm.
to walk back to the core and fix it at a core level, right?
Right.
And to
Right.
do that could affect operations. Now, I've heard some reports and things like that. For example, Twitter's a good example from what's recently happened where a lot of the people that have left have said, if you are a developer for this particular website, you're working with admin privileges in prod.
Yes.
I've heard some of those
Yes.
reports. Cannot say if they are true or not. I've just seen some of that reporting come out from some of the people that have left. Whether or not it's true, we'll see. We'll find out probably. They did also have a data breach this year that was pretty big. Point being, though, is if it is a core way that the business operates and you have to walk it back and then redesign the flow of the river, right?
Mm-hmm.
It can be difficult depending on the size of the company.
Yeah.
However, we are like if you are post, I'll say 2010 as a company, you should be designing with security in mind just off the bat.
Oh
There's been
yeah.
plenty of warning signs at this point. There's no, a lot of these projects that I see nowadays with enterprises are reclamation projects, if you will, going
Mm-hmm.
back, reclaiming their data, appropriately segmenting it up and situationally categorizing it so that way people only necessarily have access and stuff like that. Like it's this reclaim, grab our business centers and actually isolate them appropriately and defend them, right? Um,
Exactly. Exactly. I mean,
but it's expensive. It's a lot of
yeah.
technical
Well, I
debt.
mean, well, that was the thing. Like, I was consulting with, there was a company up in Burlington, Vermont. Yeah, send the guy from Alabama to Burlington in December. That's great. So that's great.
That's one
So I
reason I
went up
stopped doing
there, and
consulting.
it was exactly as cold as you think it would be. But I went up there, and I'm standing in this room with these developers, and I'm explaining to them about how to do this correctly in AWS. And I literally hear one of them say, "I wish you would have been here 6 months ago." And I said, "Well, great, you're learning how to do things right." He's like, "No, no, no, you don't understand. We've got to go back now and fix all this stuff." And I
Hmm.
mean, that was not a happy crew. They were
Yeah.
not a happy crew. But if you do it right, see, and that's the problem. It comes down to training, man. I am so sorry. Training, 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 training. I don't know what they're teaching in colleges anymore, but it just seems like so many organizations that I can name a bunch of them, but the first things you do when you get to a company for 6 months is training.
Yeah. I will say, to comment a couple. So Yuri says a lot of small orgs don't have frame of reference for what is good practice. until they get hit by ransomware on their prod boxes. I've seen that. That is very true. And
That's very true.
bearded IT dad said it costs more money and time, and it's cheaper to just put a Band-Aid on it after the fact. So it's both are very true. I'll tell you one story I did was we got when I was in the military, it got pushed down that PII had to be off of shared drives, which makes sense. It shouldn't be there in the first place, right? But we had a bunch of, a bad habit of guys that didn't understand cybersecurity, putting a bunch of PII, which would be medical records, social security numbers of active duty military members, onto a centralized, unit shared drive and whatever else. We had an audit one year. We go through the audit. I prepped for this audit for 2 months, searching for PII on this shared drive and trying to retroactively clean it all up and everything else like that. Security guy walks in, takes him all of 4 minutes. He finds PII. It was like that. It was so quick. And I was like, and it was from a file folder that was over 8 years old. Nobody that had anything to do with that file no longer existed at the unit. It was just hidden away. And I got asked, because I was the infosec chief at the time, and I got asked, what do we do about this? How do we square this up? And I said, I'm going to recommend that we just delete the share drive. And they went, what? Understand that there is so much bullcrap that is out there on this share drive right now that we can't go through and manually clean 4,000 files. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So I actually was able to get it signed off on. We gave them 6 weeks. I made backups of everything in 6 weeks, but I gave them 6 weeks. I ran through and we deleted the entire shared drive, reset up the folder structures for everybody, let them fill back in, and then checked, and there was nothing. And it was great. It worked out really well.
I actually consulted. It was a media company. It was somewhere in I can't remember where it was. I remember going in, and they were so proud of their data center. It was on the first floor behind reception in plexiglass. They were so excited about their data center, but were very quietly transitioning to AWS. And they had started building infrastructure. And quite literally, I looked at what they had done, and I said to them, and I was like, just tear everything down. Just tear it all down and start over. It's the same thing with that drive. There's so many little things here, we're never going to get it fixed. There are times, y'all, when it is better to just start over. And that's why, like with Tracy, Melissa, and myself, that's why you hear us preach about using infrastructure as code so many times, so you can just build it back up quickly versus trying to, manually create these sort of things. It's just, it's just too much. Yeah, at that point, just shut it down. Bye.
Yeah. So sometimes it's like the project is good, but you guys kind of went off the rails here. Let's completely re-deviate and come back to zero. You know what I mean? Sometimes that means completely wiping clean and starting over.
Exactly. Hey, before we go, there's one thing I wanted to talk about that for our audience of INE folks, something I've been catching with cloud that I want to point out, and it's this. I don't know where these companies are coming up with their numbers, but as you look at security related information to the cloud, you're going to start seeing stuff like 57% of organizations blah, 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 or 55% of organizations struggle with blah, 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 blah. I don't know, Jack, who these folks are talking to, but I will tell you this generally, companies don't divulge security related footprint data to third parties to create a report so they can sell their product. It just doesn't happen. I mean, Jack, would you do that? Nobody would do that. I would hang up immediately.
A generalized, hey, do you find it hard this? Do you find it hard that? Yeah, those surveys on occasion, but you don't tie your company's name to it. You just answer it in the anonymous.
Well, that's the thing. They say the data has been anomalized. I'm like, I don't care. Like, you're not going to find out our footprint and our problems. You're just not going to do it. So just a big thing out there is this. When you start seeing that sort of data, please take it with just a grain of salt. There's actually one, Jack, this is one of my favorites. In AWS IAM policies, you can have conditional statements. And it basically says something like this. let someone in if, and there's a conditional statement like they're from this IP address range or something along those lines. They came up with this goofy idea that if you don't have a conditional statement on the IAM policy, that is now considered to be a public bucket. Not even close to reality, man. Not even close. But that's what you do. So just as going into the new year present for all the folks who watch and love INE, when you see this data, y'all, please take it with a grain. Now, if it's AWS talking, okay, marketing probably touched it.
I'm done. All right.
Yeah, marketing probably touched it. So just be aware of that when you're looking at security data. Please do. Please, please, please.
Okay. Yeah, I will jump on and say definitely, but that's just all data, all claims, everything else like that. Look at the source. Go check the source. I used to sell vacuums right out of high school, door to door for Kirby. And
wow.
Yeah, way back. I used to, but they had all these product reviews of this does this, this does this, this does this. When you actually looked at it, it was a product review company that they had set up to test the product reviews intentionally. So it's, it's just another part of marketing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, Gina. Absolutely. That was a throwback on Kirby right there. That was.
I know.
And to the person who said not liking the comment about marketing, hey, love marketing. Hey, I'm a firm. If it wasn't for marketing and sales, nothing exists, because until a sale is made, until marketing gets the information out, it doesn't matter how cute we can be about this stuff. So yes, great. Thanks to marketing and sales. Thank you. But at AWS, Google, Azure, they're doing the same thing. The service is goofy, and they're going to try to make it look good. So careful, everybody.
I'm just dying at the fact you forgot that marketing sets this up for us to do every week. So,
all
right. So on that note, Brooks, I will talk to you later, if ever again.
Bye, everybody. I'll be signing my new book at the beginning
Thank you so much. Happy holidays, my friend, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you next year. All right.
Okay, man. Best of luck, everybody, with your security. Have a great holiday. We'll see you on the other side.
Sounds good. And that will wrap things up for today's stream, guys. Thank you so much for watching. And if you missed it live, look across the replay across our social channels and on INE's website. Also, feel free to tag us in anything or tweet at us. We are absolutely there. My stuff's on the screen. We love to hear from you. We love the comments. Please keep them coming. I read everything, be it from support or from our socials. So I definitely want to hear. By the way, speaking of wanting to hear, we have INE monthly for $99 that ends December 31st. That's right. You can sign up for the monthly pass to INE at a monthly rate. We heard you guys. We're trying to see what we can do with it, and we'll see how it goes. Be sure to like and subscribe on the social platforms that you're currently using so you can stay in the loop for details on our next stream and notifications for whenever we go live. We'll see you next time, and until then, I'll see you in the new year. Have a great week. Have a great happy holidays. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you in 2023.